Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here. And today I just want to talk about my initial first impressions on this little guy, the Sony ZV-1. So Sony has recently come out with this camera and it's geared towards vloggers and stuff like that because everyone is jumping on YouTube or even better quality for TikTok, which is really cool. I love that companies are quickly adapting with content creators. Not that I'm a content creator, but I love all things camera, so I am really excited that this came out, especially from Sony. I'm Sony all the way. I switched from Canon to Sony a couple years back, have never looked back. This is not gonna be a specs review. I am by no means super knowledgeable when it comes to cameras and specs and everything. This is just gonna be my initial first impressions, my opinions. I was obviously not sent this by Sony, everything purchased with my own money, but I did just want to let you know my first impressions of it coming from, I have the Sony a7 III as well as the Sony 7C, which is what I'm filming on right now. And yeah, let's dive right in. So as we know, this camera is a point and shoot camera. So meaning it is going to be among the smallest camera you can get. What drew me to this camera was the size and also the quality because it does shoot in 4K video, which I really like, and the lens that they use with it. This is why I love Sony because they have used Zeiss lenses on their point and shoot, which Zeiss lenses are so high quality, such good glass. So I really appreciate that they used that. And also the aperture, meaning the aperture on this camera and this lens, so the amount of blur that you can get from subject to background, the aperture goes down to 1.8, which is really, really good, especially for the price that you get for the entire camera. What I will say when I first unboxed it, my very first impression was just how small it was. I'm gonna take it off the tripod. So let me unhook all my gadgets and gizmos of plenty. My who's its and what's its galore. You got thingamabobs? I got 20. But who cares? No big deal. I want more. Seriously. But the size doesn't look too bad, right? Like the handle, well, because I've had Sony for quite some time and I know how they operate and how they create their cameras, especially as of recently, I knew that the grip on this camera was going to be very, very shallow. That's why I ordered this cage, which is why most of my camera is white, and then it has the black cage because it didn't come with options, unfortunately, for the color, but that has made all the difference, in my opinion. I actually have cages on all of my Sony cameras now. I have a small rig cage on my Sony a7C as well as my Sony a7 III. Both of those are small rig. This one is newer. I really like this cage for the camera because it just gives you a little added grip as well as gives me the option to very easily screw in a tripod either vertically or horizontally depending on what platform I'm planning on putting the video on. And it just makes it all that easier, right? So I'm not having to, personally, I don't like to have my tripod and they all have these screwball mounts now. So you can take the tripod and turn it vertically. I don't like to do that. I don't have enough trust in any tripod to hang my camera off the side of it. I would much rather prefer to have a cage on it and flip it up vertically. But that's besides the point. So very first thought, first impression was just how small it was, but I also am not holding that against it because that's the exact point. I think a lot of people get these cameras with different expectations, especially in terms of the size and the grip. Like that's something that a lot of people complained about the Sony a7C. I have small hands. I am 5'2", so I was having a hard time holding on to the camera as well. But I also understand that by them cutting down the grip size, they're trying to make the camera smaller, pocket size, what have you, right? So for an extra $20, $30 to put a cage on it fixed my problem. When I first got this camera, I actually was going right up to the lake with my boyfriend, which was perfect, so I took it along. It performed really well out in sunny, windy conditions. I actually didn't put the little fuzzy wind stopper mic thing on it. I did not do that, and I probably should have. So I can't really attest to how well that does for the mic, but I will say that I've been pretty impressed just based on the camera mic so far. You don't get a lot of background noise, and the little that I have noticed, I can easily take out while editing, so that hasn't been a problem for me. What I will say with this camera, when I bought this, I think I had a little bit too high of expectations for it because I was expecting it to be a Sony a7C in my pocket, right? And we know that's not the case. That's just not what this camera is. It's not possible, right? Because the difference between this size and even, I mean, here's my Sony a7 III, right? So this thing is pretty big. I don't like to take this with me a ton of places, especially if I'm going to the city. This thing was expensive, and I've had it for a few years now, and it is my baby. Like, I don't want anything to happen to it. I don't have the money to replace it. That is why I wanted to get the Sony ZV-1 so I could have a little bit of a replacement. Now, that is my own fault because I know that all of the technology that comes in this camera cannot all be in this camera, right? So just like I was talking about people having a little bit too high of expectations or unrealistic expectations when it comes to the size and the grip of the camera, I had too high of expectations of the performance of the camera. I will say I have been a little disappointed with how it does perform in like indoor lighting, and even when I'm sitting in front of this big window, which you can clearly see emits a lot of light, I didn't get the results that I was wanting, and part of that's my fault because I had my big light on above me and it made for a really weird yellow light and lighting issue. But what I'm noticing with this camera, unless you're in like direct outdoor sunlight, you're gonna get noise, and if that doesn't bother you, or if you're not even sure what noise is coming from a camera, then I would say go and definitely look at this camera. But it's something that really bothers me just coming from the 7C or the a7 III. These cameras are designed for low light, right? They don't have the grain, they don't have the noise. So seeing that has been really bothering me, and I'm really trying to test it out and give it a fair shot. I've only had it for about 3 days now, so keep that in mind. I'm probably going to give it another week or two, see if I really like it. Otherwise, I might end up returning it. It bothers me that much, and in my opinion, for what I'm looking for personally, at that point, I would rather save up a couple extra $100 and get a crop sensor. Again, maybe. That's, I don't know. But regardless, I have been pretty stoked with how well it does work. Here I am using the Sony A7, the Sony ZV-1. I just want to show a comparison side by side. This is the A7C footage. This is the Sony ZV-1 footage, and this is the in-camera mic. Now, I do want to compare how it sounds with this little mic attached to it. Also, as you can tell, this is handheld, so it is I'm not actually sure the lens length, but it does it crops in kind of tight for a handheld camera. This is now using the off-camera mic. This mic was around $30, and yeah, let's see how it sounds. Me. I was like, watch me not be recording. I will say, this does have a flip-out screen, which is heaven to me, as you fellow Sony shooters will know from the a7 III. That is its one flaw and downfall. Something that caught me off guard with this camera that no one talked about, or not that I saw at least, was when you're shooting in 4K for this camera, it does have a recording limit set as a default, which is 5 minutes, which again, for those of you coming from the A7 III, which had a recording limit actually just a recording limit in general of 30 minutes, 5 minutes is really short. But luckily, I think Sony knew that, and they did put an option in their menu for you to turn that off, which is super simple, which I guess I will show you. I don't really know how people do this, so I'm not sure how to show you this exactly. I'll just explain it. Basically, the way I found it was, oh, also, we'll get back to that. On the Sony menu, if you go to Setup 1 and click over one page, this option right here, you click on it and you set it on high. So the power off temp, if you set it on high, it fixes the problem. So now the videos don't cut out at 5 minutes, which is really nice. Granted, I don't know what that means for the longevity of the camera, and I'm hoping that it's not too terrible, too much wear and tear on it. To be fair, I am not going to be shooting, for the most part, my YouTube videos on this or anything that takes a ton of time. At most, I will probably be continuously recording with this camera for maybe 10 minutes, if that. But I will say that I did record with it for about, I think roughly about 10 minutes the other day. I did notice it starting to get a little hot already at that 10-minute mark. So just be aware of that. Another thing that it has as a default, it has a skin blurring or a soft skin effect that is defaulted onto this camera. I turned it off because personally I didn't like the way that it looks. I thought it made the image overall look pretty soft, so I wasn't a huge fan of that. On the top right here, this button is where you are able to determine how the background is focused on, so it does have the option to blur the background or make it clear. I forget what the other option is, but I didn't notice a tremendous difference between all of these settings. I do keep this camera in aperture priority, so that may be why it pretty much stays with an aperture of 1.8, which is giving the most amount of bokeh in the background. So bokeh, I don't know. All in all, I am both impressed and a little unimpressed with this camera at the same time. So I'm going to keep playing around with it. I might update you on a later video on my second thoughts or my lasting impression of this, and I'll let you know if I even keep it, because right now I'm within the 30-day return window, and I'm certainly not going to keep it for the amount of money that I spent on it and be disappointed. So, like I said, overall, I will let you know how it goes, but thank you so much for watching. I am so happy you're here. Go out and live an amazing life. Be kind to others. I hope you have an amazing day, week, month, whenever you're watching this. Be honest, does this sweater make me look like a grandma? I'm okay with either answer, but I just want to know. Forgot this. All right, we're gonna lose the sweater. It's just gonna be on my lap because it's a little chilly. I'm glad I caught that. I actually ran out of storage on this SD card, so I'm not exactly sure where I left off.